I am here to interrupt your normally televised program with my opinion. That's right. Today, I'm going to share my opinion on what's going on in Venezuela. And while I'm at it, I'm going to take the time to touch on other topics besides Venezuela, like Nicki Minaj and Nigerian Christians. We're going to talk about all kind of stuff. And by the end of this video, you're going to be typing in the comments, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? Who does he think? I get it all the time. I get those comments all the time. So you may be the next person who puts in the comment section, who do you think you are? And share some other personal attack against me because you don't know me and I don't know you. But what I would like to do is us to have a conversation. And I would like you to share in the comments in a mature manner on why you agree or disagree with what happened in Venezuela today. Today, as you know, President Trump, or last night, he did an airstrike that involved land, it involved sea, and it involved air. And they went in and captured, or should I say captured, whatever word you want to use, Nicholas Maduro. And he is now in custody of the United States. There's pictures of him on one of the USS carriers, and he has a bottle of water. So guess what? They're treating him pretty decently already, right? He got a bottle of water. They ain't gonna let the dude just croak over and die because this is all about information, right? So they're gonna be getting a lot of information from him. And something I wanna jump into before we get too far into this video, that I don't have any bullet points. Look, usually I write stuff on an index card. I got blank index cards. I'm not going off of any index card. I don't have an open laptop or an open computer so I can pull up information to tell you exactly what it is and act like I'm a professional on all things Venezuelan and all things, geopolitical. I'm not. I don't know everything. I'm going to go off of the database that's right here in my head, because you yourself that's watching this video, when you're having a conversation at work and talking to people at the bar, or you're hanging out at church talking to people, or you're at the football game waiting in line to get your nachos, you're talking to people and conversation just strikes. Man, what'd you think about the president invading Venezuela? Well, it wasn't an invasion. It was a strategic strike with the purpose, from what I'm gathering and what I can tell, to capture Maduro. Now Maduro's in custody. Now, right now, as we speaking, Maduro might be in Colorado, the Rockies, Alcatraz. He might be in the, in Colorado prison. That's where they send, high profile prisoners, from Unabombers to drug cartel leaders, all the way to prison gang members. They're all in the Colorado of the Rockies, what they call Alcatraz of the Rockies. Anyway, last night, President Trump invades. I keep saying invades, and some of y'all probably really feel like he does invade, but he doesn't invade. They launch a strike in Venezuela, capture Maduro, and here's the reason why I think they did it. It's because it's been a big issue when it comes to narcotics, the trafficking of narcotics from Colombia to Venezuela to America. If you have a problem with this, I really want you to take a moment to think that you may be thinking this is about other stuff. Yes, there are oil connections involved in this. Yes, there are terrorist possibility ties that are involved in this. But if we go to the very root of this and how we get to this point, it's because of narcotics and narcos. Maduro is obviously connected to narcos. He's been connected to narcos a long time ago. Colombia is making the product. It's going to Venezuela, and Venezuela is doing what they can to get it up here. And look, we ain't even talking about China, who makes the fentanyl mostly that winds up in America, and Americans die every single day from fentanyl overdoses, whether it's intentionally using it or unintentionally getting it from using the narcotics like cocaine, and it's cut with fentanyl and they don't know about it. Or some people just want that fentanyl because they don't care. They're gambling with their life. Either way, it's a war against America with narcotics. And Maduro is one of the bigger players in it. Is he the biggest player? No. I think if you trace him back, there are bigger backers and possibly bankers behind the backers. Anyway, but Maduro is a person who's been in charge of a nation since the 1990s. The 1990s, right? That's a long time. We should have term limits on anybody in government positions, especially political positions in America. We can't control what's going on in Venezuela. Listen, puppet governments happen all the time. What do you think Nelson Mandela was? That was a puppet government. In all likelihood, Martin Luther King was a puppet plant. You know what I mean? There are plants all over. You know, if you don't think the Obamas, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Bidens, they all together. They look, conservative Republicans, they're all connected. The only cowboy that we have is President Donald J. Trump. He's a true cowboy. You may not like his way he does things, but the world very well may need a man like him to lead for a while that's not connected to nobody. And I know people see that the mouth because they hate the man so much. But to me, he's probably the only one who ain't connected to none of the other stuff. And yes, there should be term limits too. That's a whole nother topic. Like I said, we're going to jump everywhere. This is like talking on a prison gun line. And if you watch my videos, you know we talk a lot about the prison gun line. In the South, in Louisiana, you got to work the prison fields. And in the prison fields, dudes just start talking. And there ain't no Google to look stuff up. The database is they mine. So they talk from whatever they know up here and from whatever information they gathered from the news over time, or they read that newspaper. Because back in the day when I did time in prison, everybody read that newspaper. And so that's how we talk. And so as you sharing in the comments, you know, and your thoughts are popping up, share them, man. Yeah, we go down rabbit holes because that's how normal conversations go. Anyway, now we have Maduro. So what's going to happen next? Are they going to put another puppet leader in his position? The vice president is already, I'm assuming, taking the reins. And there are people who are cheering because now they feel like they're free in Venezuela. And the previous leader, who is it? I think Chavez, who was the previous leader of Venezuela. Venezuela has been under some terrible leadership. And we sit here and cheer this stuff on, but the people who live there, they don't like this stuff. We sit here and protect these narcos, these leaders, Chavez, Maduro. And we buy T-shirts with these criminals on it. And we act like they doing, doing a good thing, but they ain't doing no good thing, man. The people don't want them people ruling. There's a reason that certain governments want them in power. You think China cares that Maduro was in power? They need that. I'm telling you, they want that fentanyl to come here. You think it's just by accidents they created fentanyl? Yeah, the narcos want the money. But make no mistake, the Chinese, they playing a long game, a geopolitical game of power. They're playing war. You know, you remember the TV show everybody loves so much? What was it? Not War of the Worlds, Game of Thrones. China's playing Game of Thrones. And they've been playing Game of Thrones. They're playing a long game. They playing chess in the master level. And you think fentanyl is just about money to them? Sure, they're raking in money. And the narcos is just about money. The narcos don't care. It's money. Money and power. But for China, it's a bigger thing. They want land. They want oil. Every country who has power wants oil, people. That's a reality. So if America doesn't want its hands on oil, then we stupid, we foolish. Any smart nation who has power wants oil. That's just the way it goes. If you got in power, you'd be like, oh, we're going to open it and everybody's going to get saved. It don't work that way. Everybody don't get nothing. That's not how power works. You know, you're living in a dream world. It's just not going to happen. Eventually, the world's probably going to, you know, be in a bad place. I don't know, man. I don't know how long we can make it, you know. But anyway, I think it's a good thing that Venezuela, you know, had a strategic strike and that we captured the person that we should have captured. Listen, Joe Biden, as far as I know, he actually put an indictment for Maduro. So this goes beyond Trump. We've always known that there's a narcotics issue with trafficking narcotics to America from Venezuela. This isn't new. So why, whenever Trump does something, and you ain't got to like him, but you can recognize that, right? Share in the comments. Don't you think that we should be dealing with narcos or people who are in leadership who bow down to the narcos and do the narcos bidding? He's making money from narcos. He's making money off of death. Americans are dying. And that ain't counting all the people in Venezuela who are getting unalived and oppressed behind the power of the narcos. Man, y'all, come on, man. My brother died from fentanyl. And he's just one of a bunch of people I know who died from fentanyl. I personally hate narcotics. I hate drug smuggling. I think narcos should be arrested, should be tried, imprisoned, and possibly executed. They're executing us every single day, y'all, and we're against each other. And you might say that this is about oil because Venezuela has a large reserve of oil. I get it. You know what I mean? It's not just about oil, though. Now, it would be smart if America had a person in place who is going to trade oil with us. You know what I mean? Openly. It would put us in a better... Would you rather get oil from Russia or oil from Venezuela? A Venezuela that's free. A Venezuela that's not under dictatorship. I know a lot of y'all like dictatorship now. You know what I mean? And you can say President Trump is a dictator, but the dude's a cowboy. He's probably one of the he's probably one of the last cowboys that we'll ever see. You know what I mean? He's a true cowboy. He just does it that way, and that's just the way it is. You like it or not like it. I used to work on international vessels, and I was working on a vessel with a Greek crew, and they brought me downstairs, and they used to practice MMAs, the captain and the crew. And it was no, it wasn't the captain, it was the chief. The captain was there, but it was the chief who was really doing all the training and his crew. But the captain, you know, he kind of smiled and supported him too. Anyway, they brought me down into the gym area that they had, and they had boxing gloves, and they were all down there fighting, and they like, and you know, in my poor Greek voice, they were like, "You like, my friend? You like?" And I'm like, yeah, it's cool, man. Yeah, they like, "You do MMA?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't do no MMA." They like, you box anything? I'm like, "Nah, I don't do none of that. You know, I like it, but I don't train or do anything myself." But they were like, he was like, "Yes, we train because in Greek, we are done. We have allowed the invasion of Islam." And he wasn't talking about Muslim. He was talking about Islamists. He said, by us being kind-hearted, we have destroyed ourselves. And now we are invaded with Islamists. He said, "I'm not talking about Muslim, my friend." And this was a Greek guy telling me this. Full Greek ship who worked, they're sailors, they work on the ocean, they work in the water, come into the Mississippi River, they move oil back and forth. That's just the reality of it. And he was telling me these things. He was sharing, in Greece, we have been invaded and we allowed it. He said, and he was talking, this is during Trump's first term. He said, "We like Trump." I said, "Y'all like Trump?" Yes. He said, "A lot of Greeks like Trump because he is the last true cowboy, like John Wayne." I said, "Like John Wayne?" He said, "Yeah, like John Wayne." He said, "Don't do like Greece did. America must be smart. Don't let yourself become invaded by just allowing yourself to be invaded because your heart is soft toward people." Man, not everybody has good motives. We need to be careful, man. We really do, man. I know a lot of people don't agree with this stuff. It's fine, whatever. But we got to be careful. And if you look at what's going on, Islamists are the ones who are unaliving Christians in Nigeria. And Christians being unalived in Nigeria is a big deal to me. I've been praying about that personally with our prayer team that we have at my church for the last year and a half. And I've been speaking about this for over a decade anyway, possibly the last 15 years or more. You know, I've been discussing how Christians are unalived in Africa at an exponential rate, and we don't do anything about it. We don't talk about it. And it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. And at the Pen and the Shank, we talk about all things crime and prison related. And you can't get much more crime related than narcos and humanitarian issues for people losing their lives. You know what I mean? So why can't we agree that going to Nigeria and dealing with the Islamists is a good thing? Even if you're a Muslim, you should be like, yeah, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? You shouldn't want innocent people to lose their lives. Innocent Christians. These are school children who are in buildings and they're being brought out and hacked to death with machetes. This stuff is real. How many people die from fentanyl in America every single day? How many Christians die from being gouged with machetes in Nigeria? And we turn a blind eye to it, right? We want to watch our stupid TikTok videos instead of talk about stuff, and we get offended with one thing to the next, and we just believe the first talking head that comes on TV. I'm saying let's have a discussion. The Pen and the Shank is a very different style channel. And I understand it's going to take time to gain traction in its audience because I ain't bowing no knee. I ain't reading no script. You know what I mean? I'm coming from the database that's right here, and I'm using my eyes and my ears. And at this point, you know, you either jet it out or somebody's ears are just smoking, listening. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, you guess you do, right? It's just our own 2 cents. It's our own opinion. And my opinion is I don't want innocent Christians dying in Nigeria. And I don't want narcotics coming up from Venezuela into America. I would like to see things changed. And sometimes when I do my channel, I got to go do research before I talk about something. But today I saw it and I said, you know what? We're going to start the new year out because one thing I claim on the Pen and Shank, that the Pen and the Shank is the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. And I want to try different stuff. And so today I said, I'm just going to shoot from the hip. I'm going to use whatever's up here. I ain't going to have no talking points. And I'm just going to start talking about Venezuela. And then wherever it went, it went. And that's how Nicki Minaj came up as well. So Nicki Minaj, and I'm not somebody who listens to Nicki Minaj, but I know who she is because she pops up on the news, cycles from here to there. And I recently appreciated that she brought up standing. It was, I think, at the UN. It was at the council. She spoke or something. And she said that the Nigerian Christians, were being persecuted and we needed to do something about it. I agree with her. I don't have a big platform. She does. We need people to speak up. And now they're mad at the woman because she went on Turning Point and had a discussion with Erica Kirk. Are you kidding me? She wants to see people live. Christians who are being persecuted. Christians get the baddest rap there is. It's crazy. Man, this stuff is nuts, y'all. Nicki Minaj did a good thing by defending Christianity and defending the Christians in Nigeria. Somebody has to. You know what I mean? And President Trump, he responded, man. He dealt with the Islamists. There are Islamic terrorist organizations that are operating in Nigeria. Boom, it's obvious, right? They're unaliving Christians at an exponential rate. Even if we took the lowest numbers of Christians that were persecuted in Nigeria, it's unacceptable. It's a humanitarian crisis. And it's a crime against humanity. And it's being committed by Islamic terrorists. That's who's doing the unaliving of these Christians. And we can't ignore that. I don't care what you believe in. We can't ignore that. Man, everything's agenda driven, y'all. It's all agenda driven. And, we got to pay attention, man. And look, Somalia, another issue. I worked on the Mississippi River. I remember talking to Indian chiefs because maybe the Greeks don't get your attention because, they're just white people, right? You can't listen to what they're saying. Okay, Indian chief mates. I worked with Indian crews. And I remember the Indian crews used to always tell me about going off the coast of Somalia. And they go off the coast of Somalia. One of the craziest stories, and I'm going to tell a story again, but I'm going to bring it up right here too, because I think it's a good enough story that it deserves a video on its own. But I'm talking to a chief mate on a boat, and we're gauging the oil because that's what we do. We have to measure the quantity and quality of the oil. And so that's what we're doing. We're doing that on a boat. And I'm talking to the chief mate because I'm an inspector. That's what I did. I did inspection work on the Mississippi River for international vessels and national vessels as well for the oil and gas field. So we had to measure the quality and the quantity of the oil and quantify it, with all the different variables. So the buyer and seller of the oil knew exactly how much oil was moving from point A to point B so nobody could skim each other on the top. So that's kind of the stuff that we did, right? Anyway, I'm talking to the chief and he's talking to me about Somalia. He says, anytime we go off the coast of Somalia, we have to be careful on what we're doing because there are pirates. And you got to sit, like I said, I'm going back probably, 12 years ago. I'm talking to this chief mate and he's been doing this a long time. And I said, what's the craziest thing you ever seen off the coast of Somalia? He said, my friend, and listen, I'm about to give you my poor Indian accent. If you're an Indian, you can say, I sound stupid. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm gonna try to reenact this as best as I can. He said, my friend, he said, we was off the coast of Somalia and the boat was going like this and we're moving along. And he said, I have my binoculars because a pumpy is a helper on a ship. He said, my pumpy hands me my binoculars. I look at the binoculars. I said, oh, I see them. And the pumpy says, yes, you see them, huh? They are coming, chief. They are coming, chief. And he said, oh, I know. He said, they will eventually get to us. Let's prepare. And so all international ships know that they're going to run into piracy and they're going to run into narcos. In the Panama Canal, I've heard all the stories. Trust me, I got some crazy stories about that were told to me firsthand from people who experienced them transporting oil and cargo throughout the world. So this chief mate's telling me, he said, the Somalian pirates get next to him. He said, the wind's rocking, they're on these little bitty boats. And he said, they always yell. And he said, what they'll do, most of the time they'll leave. If you either toss them down something, some rations or something, they want something. So you send them something, they'll be on their way. Or sometimes they'll come on board. They'll go talk to the chief. The chief will negotiate. They usually have monies set aside to give these pirates because it's a small amount of pay and which in something that could be a bigger problem. So I'll say so what y'all do, chief? You're like, we'll give them boxes of cigarettes and we might give them, $10,000 and they'll leave. right? They got something. And the pirates know it's better to take the $10,000 and the 5 boxes of cigarettes than it is to have, you know what I mean, the international police come on board or United States military come on board and blast them. So they'll usually take it as a win because taking over these ships aren't easy. Anyway, the ship's on side the boat, and I said, what's going on? He said, he's looking at me, and he said, the Somali pirate has an RPG pointed at him, and he's yelling at him, and he's like, "Fool, let me coming aboard." And so they throw these grappling hooks so they can come up, and the chief's like, no, he sends the ladder down. Like I said, they got contingency plans like this. Like Batman got a contingency plan for contingency plan. The international sailors and shippers, they have contingency plans for this too. You think the backers and the bankers aren't going to be prepared for this? They're not going to lose their oil. So anyway, he's like, what are you doing? He said, the Somali pirates got the RPG pointed at him. He said, he looks at me. He said, I said, what happened? He said, at that moment I was thinking, and I yelled down to him, are you crazy? He said, if you fire the RPG rocket at the ship, you are not just going to blow us up, but you're going to kill yourself. We are carrying 500,000 barrels of fuel. What do you think you are going to do with the rocket? He said, you're so stupid. You Somali pirate, you're dumb. You won't live. He put the RPG down. Come get your $10,000 and go on your way. I said, what happened? He said he got his $10,000. He went away. He said, but that was the dumbest pirate I've ever seen. He said, I've never seen one point an RPG, usually AK-47s. I said, yeah, Chief. He said, yes, very crazy, my friend, very crazy. We laugh, we drink coffee, drink that coffee together, chop it up. So I got so many stories on that. Anyway, that was my 2 cents today that I wanted to talk about, you know, what happened in Venezuela. And obviously we went down a rabbit hole because that's the way I wanted this video to be. I wanted it to be like a normal conversation on a prison gun line, because sometimes I want to show you how conversations occur on the gun line and they can go this way and that way, right? Down a rabbit hole. And that's what I want to give you an experience like it is on the gun line without actually being on the gun line. That's how these conversations would occur. So in the comments, you can jump from rabbit hole to rabbit hole, share in the comments what you want about anything I said or add anything to it. You know what I mean? And give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and The Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison related channel on YouTube. Back to your programs.